Hi, this is Randy Randall of No Age and host of the podcast Hyphenate with Randy Randall. I want to welcome our newest sponsor of the show, DistroKid. DistroKid helps musicians get their music on all the major streaming platforms, and artists keep 100% of their royalties. Hyphenate listeners get 30% off at distrokid.com/VIP/hyphenate. Again, that's distrokid.com/VIP/HYPHENATE. Go get your music streaming everywhere now. Hello, welcome to Hyphenate. I am your host, Randy Randall, and on today's show, I got the chance to sit down with incredible, cultural shifter. Is that the right way to say it? Today, I sat down with Jaime Stillman from Earthquaker Devices. You may also know his bands, Party of Helicopters, Relaxer, Fringe Candidate, Teeth of Hydra, and then he was also the drummer in Harriet the Spy in the New Terror class. But Jaime is probably familiar to most of us as the designer, engineer, lead person at Earthquaker Devices, and it was really fun to get to sit with him and talk about pedals and inspirations for pedals. You know, I been using guitar pedals since I first started playing guitar. I kind of came up in the 90s and went to the local guitar center, and I think the first pedal I bought was a DoD Thrashmaster, this big pink kind of full-on overdrive fuzzy pedal. But it felt like, you know, pedals were part of playing guitar in the 90s. And over the years, I've gone on to play many pedals in the band No Age that I play in. I've had insane pedal boards and have stripped it back and have done all kinds of different, arrangements of pedals, all over the place. I've had big boards, small boards. I think I was inspired, obviously, by similar bands that have inspired Jaime. But, shoegaze, kind of loud, noisy stuff, Sonic Youth things, My Bloody Valentine. And it felt like pedals were the portal to create other worlds with guitar sounds. And maximum volume coming out of big tube heads through big cabinets with lots of pedals doing all kinds of coloring and smearing and pushing. So it was really fun to get to talk with Jaime about his adventure and his journey through pedal making. And it was great. It was great. And again, one of those nerd out kind of moments. If you are allergic to guitar nerds, this is not the episode for you, because what you were about to hear is two big guitar nerds nerding out for almost an hour. And I'm sure we could have done it for another 14 hours. It was really great talking with him, and he was kind enough to send me some pedals to check out as well after the fact, and I've been having such a great time with him. Really cool pedals that he sent, and a really cool pedal company, so make sure you go over and check out earthquakerdevices.com and sink your teeth into everything they have on offer there. It's really cool stuff, like from simple overdrives to really complex modulated, harmonic delays and swirly sounds. You can really get lost with everything they have there, and they're a really great company, and Jaime's a really great guy. So here's my conversation with him. Oh man, well thank you for making it, man. This is awesome. So you have a studio set up in New York. You're saying you're in New York right now?
No. I'm in Akron.
You're in Akron. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't know if we were bouncing back and forth. If there was a New York trip you had going on.
No.
We're
going. I'm going to New York to see Unwound because they don't want to play in Ohio.
Cool.
Otherwise, no New York.
That's awesome. Yeah, we're opening for them Sunday in San Francisco.
Oh, sick. Where at?
Yeah, the Regency Ballroom.
Oh, cool.
Which is a venue I haven't played before, but yeah, I think I got the run. This will come out after all these shows. This won't come out for a few more months, but yeah, they're doing a 1 hour set. So they're gonna have. So it's
wow.
gonna be basically like a really long, I think, a career spanning, discography spanning
that's sweet.
live set. Yeah, one opener and then two sets. With a break in the middle. So
That's cool. That's super
Springsteen
cool.
level. Yeah. Well, not quite
I
half a Springsteen show.
I don't know any of them, but I'm a huge fan of Unwound, especially in the 90s, like, very influential to me. But, I've talked to Justin recently a couple times via email looking for pedals. So,
I'm sure he's a fan. I was just going to say, I'm sure that won't be a hard connection to make.
Yeah, I sent him some stuff.
That's amazing.
I'm excited to see.
Super cool. I wonder if it's on. If it's on the pedal board, I'll let you know. I'll take a picture of it after sound check and let you know what's rocking there. Who did I just play? I just played with Spiral from Pavement. And cool. Opened up some solo shows and joined them on stage. And there was a pedal manufacturer in the UK that saw, when I announced the show, he's like, okay, look at his pedal board. Tell me if does he have my
it's spies.
Is it on there? Is it on there? Tell me what he's got. So this will be our first interloper pedal gazing.
Yeah. That sounds like you got a job. You're like a pedal PI.
There we go, right? Yeah, private investigator, PPPI, pedal board investigation.
Yeah, PPPI.
Yeah.
You can add it to your resume.
Man, I'll put that on LinkedIn. See who else I can drum up. Oh my God. Well, I follow so many different gear things on Facebook. Like my Facebook is not all the high school pyramid schemes, most people's Facebooks, I suppose, or what it's meant for, right? But it's that's mostly gear things. And I love the grainy pictures of like what's over James Hetfield's shoulder in a still from this video from 1986. Like, I'm pretty sure that's the graphic EQ with the C++. You can tell. Yeah, I love the forensic gear stuff. I'm sure you probably go down those rabbit holes yourself.
Yeah, I like to pretend like I don't. I realize I make fun of all that stuff all the time, like people who get super nerdy about everything. And then I think that sometimes, I don't know if I'm disassociating from my actual life, but I forget oh, you're such a fucking nerd that you started making pedals and selling them. I am obsessed. I am actually obsessed with gear.
Of course.
More than I even realize. It's second. I wake up in the morning and every 15 minutes refresh reverb looking for modular synth stuff. That's
God.
The pedal. Yeah, that's the pedal stuff took a back seat at the start of the pandemic, and now I'm oh yeah, I need my 500th low pass gate. I really do.
Oh my God.
Then I'll start making music.
The modular synth world is it reminds me of the Nothing from the Neverending Story. It's it takes one more person down every day. Another guitarist goes down the modular hole, and you never see him again. I mean, every once in a while they come out with you'll recognize them by the bleeps and bloops over there. I'm sure. And I'm speaking for myself. I'm sure I'm only days away or months away myself from becoming, going down the black hole and becoming a monk.
I have thought I would avoid it forever for whatever reason. We have so many people past and present at Earthquaker who are deep into it, and everybody would always be like, "Oh, you got to get into this. You're gonna love it. You would love this. You got to do it." And I would be like, "That looks like work to me. That looks like what I do for a job, patching shit together to make sounds." So in my mind, I was like, I don't know. I don't want to breadboard all day and then go home and breadboard in real life for music. I don't know. It does nothing. It didn't sound appealing. And then we put out a module, the Afterneath pedal as a Eurorack module. And at that point, I was like, and that was really pushed by other people at Earthquaker. At that point, I was like, well, I should know how to use modular synth if we're going to release something. What if someone asked me questions? So I bought a handful of modules and was like, oh my God, I love it. I love this so much. And now, I have a wall. It's been 4 years. It was a little bit before the pandemic, but that really sparked it. And it's more with everything. It's almost more about collecting.
You're right. Yeah.
Than it is actually making music, because there's so many cool things, and I'll probably never get to or really fully learn everything that I have. And I hate menu divey things. I really like stuff that's just this is everything it does. It's right here and that's it. And there's so much in the world of modular synth that's menu divey, and they present it to you like, oh, it's just really easy. You just got to hold down these. It's like, no, fuck off. That's not easy at all. It's not intuitive, but I want it, so thanks. And
give it to me. I will take it all.
I'll spend my weekends for the rest of my life watching YouTube demos of people working sequencers.
It's a beautiful thing. It's it's beyond my pay grade at the current moment, but I respect it. It's still it's like MIDI. It's in the realm of wizards.
Exactly.
I
feel like an idiot too with that. Like, people have been asking me for years, like, when's Earthquake going to do MIDI controlled things? And for 2 years, I just made fun of people straight to their face until I was like, oh wait, you're serious? People really use MIDI? Okay, I don't. And I don't know why anybody else does. And now I'm starting to be like, oh, okay, I got it. I get why people like this. But I bought a Boss SY 200, 2000, whatever it is, the guitar synthesizer, and it has MIDI capabilities. And I was like, this is it. I'm learning MIDI. Because there's a lot of really cool sounds in that thing. And I bought this fancy MIDI controller, and I spent 8 hours on a Saturday. It was like, yeah, okay, I got it. I'm learning how to program this. It's so simple. It's just a little window, and you just assign stuff, and everything is cool. And then I unplug it and I plug everything into the pedal board, and nothing works out. I programmed it, and I was like, all right, I'll do it again. After 8 hours of doing it, I got it to turn on and off. I didn't get it to change programs or parameters at all. And I was like, okay, I'm an idiot. I'm putting all this stuff back in a box, and I'm going to forget that I bought it. That's exactly what happened. That was 1 year ago. That was 1 year ago.
That's the end of MIDI, man.
Yeah. But I use a bunch of MIDI stuff with the synths.
Okay. Yeah, no, I love the people it's so easy. Just do this, and then 5 minutes later, you lost me after the second do this.
Yeah, it's boring. You're not making music. You're just programming shit, and it's I don't know. I definitely
have
Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no. No. I was just gonna say I say all this, and then with full disclosure that I'm ready to eat my words at any minute here. By the end of this conversation, I could be the full MIDI fanatic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I have no rock to die on here. I have no real proof or reason to be such a hater. It's just the fear of things I don't know, and or more the contrarian of people's enthusiasm. When you see people so excited about something, it's more just fuck you. You're way too happy and excited about this.
Yeah, I am super, super guilty of that. And I am really trying to stop doing that. And I think I've actually done a good job. But me in my 20s was oh, you have wheels on your amp? Fuck you.
Fuck you.
Just wheels on your amp. Oh, you're using a combo amp? Eat shit.
Yeah. Yep. Oh yeah. I'm guilty of all these sins. But my favorite one though now is in the era of memes and and sort of the social media-ness of it, just the specificity that you can get on some of these, on some of these memes and stuff, or I thought it was the passing the cable behind the strap. You know what I mean? That was really, I was like, oh, okay. At 22, once I realized you put the cable behind the strap, nobody could tell me shit. No one could tell me anything. Yeah.
I feel of course recently, totally pro bands where I'm your cable is just dangling from your Stratocaster. What is wrong?
It's a cardinal sin. Yeah. That, and then the Grolsch rubber the beer openers. Jesus. Yeah, that was the other one. Those two things in my 20s, and I felt hey, I'm a pro. I know what I'm doing. Where's my $5? I'm a professional musician. I just played a gig. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not one of you newbies.
I always thought that shit was kind of funny. I was super judgmental like that, but my bands in the 90s would show up to people's houses, and I've got a Marshall, 2 412 cabinets and a Marshall 810 cabinet and 3 Sun heads, and I'm playing in someone's living room, and I have a pedal board, and people are like, you use pedals? And they're on a board? It's 2 Pro. And I'm playing in someone's 14-year-old's living room for 30 people. It's well, I didn't realize it, but I'm way into gear, as it turns out.
This is it. Yeah. Well, that's half that. For me, I mean, it sounds like your journey was similar too, where it's like the gear was part of the fun of it all. It wasn't just, there was the chords and the songwriting, but that takes a lot of work and time, and you can't jump ahead on that one. However, saving up a couple bucks, from whatever shit jobs you have, and you can acquire these, these talismans of suns and 412s and things that, suddenly like your molecular biology has changed by playing through this equipment.
It is true. Like I mean, as long as I can remember, like I've paid attention to and cared about like what other people were using. It's like the visual presentation of it is just as exciting to me, and as much of a part of like why I would like a band versus just like liking the songs or whatever. I still, that has lessened a lot, but I still get disappointed, like, if I really like a band's record and I go see them live and they're using, like, a bunch of little combo amps or, like, digital modelers and, like, the stage is empty and it's like,
yeah.
The music's good, but something's missing. Like, I'm not that into it.
Yeah.
Like, I like it. I like it to feel it and to, see it.
Oh yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, no, I always had this like personal theory. Like if my pant legs weren't moving, if I wasn't feeling the vibration of the amps from behind me pushing it, as much as I love getting stuff as high as I can to get it really in my ears. That was my first step in compromising. I was like, well, I'll turn it down if I can hear it. You know what I mean? But if I can't hear it, I can't turn it down. So the quest became to stack things higher and higher and higher, so just to get them right next to my ear. You know what I mean? If I have a beta lead blaring in my ear, then I can justify. Well, that's why it sounds good. I'm the closest person to it. You know what I mean? I'm not going to turn down. But if it's
Go ahead.
If it's going at my knees, if it's going at my knees, then it's like that doesn't. I'm killing that kid in the front row. I understand why his ears are bleeding, but mine aren't. So
yeah, you had a very impressive pile of amplifiers in New York when I saw you a couple months ago.
Oh yeah. I'm a fan of the stack, the pile. Yeah, and again, but mostly for the reason I need them to up in my ears, and then that way I can justify the volume of it. But anyway, so I want to know. So the name of the show is Hyphenate, and the idea is we talk to people who do many things, whether that is simultaneously or chronologically over the course of their lives and career. And I think you are a perfect example of one of these hyphenates. My favorite kind of hyphenates. You know what I mean? Where you there's creative and tech and creativity. Just kind of oozing all over all of it and kind of binding it all together. Where did this all happen? Tell me where you come from and where did it all start?
Oh boy. Jeez. I've been a musician for as long as I can remember. Like, there's pictures of me at 4 years old, 3 years old, playing drums on Hatbox. There's a recording of me playing Hard Day's Night, which is weird because I still don't really like the Beatles. But on Hatboxes, and I'm a drummer first, and that's my first instrument. I didn't start playing guitar till I was 12, but see where that got me. Yeah.
And were there older brothers or parents?
Uncles.
Who had the music? Uncles had the music.
I kind of until I was 7, I think, around 7. I grew up at my grandparents' house in. One of my uncles, my Uncle Danny, was still living there. He played drums. He was in a band. And I think that they practice in the basement. I think that's kind of what got me, where I was like, this is it. And then, oddly, too, I have this experience. I hear this a lot from people my age. I just happened to catch, Kiss, Phantom of the Park or something like that, on PBS after, Sesame Street or something. And I was like, oh, this is cool. And it didn't stick. I don't like Kiss either. This is my judgmental still as an adult. I'm like, I like everything.
It's a good gateway drug.
Yeah, it is for everybody. Yeah. I love everything about Kiss except for their music and whatever their modern day politics are. That Gene Simmons Firestarter cover is pretty awesome. If anybody's ever seen that, it's one of the best comedy sketches I've ever seen. Even though it's not supposed to be. But Yeah, like I think something like that. And I was like hooked as long as I can remember. I was just like, oh, I'm just gonna be a musician. I didn't know what that meant or anything like that. Like even until I was like in my mid-20s, I don't think I knew what that meant. Like I'm just gonna do this. I'm gonna be a guitar player. But yeah, I think I was pretty serious about it even back then. Like I was a pretty good drummer at that young age. And got like real into like glam metal and stuff like that. So like
Awesome.
by the time I was like 10 or 11, I had a drum set with like a roll cage with like double kick drums and all these toms and shit, timbales.
No way.
Yeah,
Oh my God.
like whatever Ricky Rocket from Poison was using, that's what I had because I loved that band.
Rain sticks and chimes.
Yeah, all the shit.
Yeah.
And you know what's weird is like I discovered punk rock at like 13, 14 and like was like, fuck all that stuff. And now that I'm older, I'm like, that stuff's awesome. Like I bought rototoms and chimes and cowbells and stuff like recently. BC Riches, like,
Oh my God.
just getting back into
Amazing.
to that stuff. But like,
That's amazing.
Yeah. Like
I'll jump in here. Sorry, but
Yeah, okay.
I worked at a lot of video stores out here in LA, and I found this amazing video that was called "Visual and Special Effects Drumming," and it was about how to be the most visual drummer you could be. And it was right in the end of the '80s, and the whole idea was don't put your cymbals. If the audience can't see your face, then if you can't see their face, they can't see yours. It was all about how to position your cymbals so they didn't get in the way of like your eye contact with the audience. And then he's practicing. There was you could go spin your sticks in a circular motion or laterally or vertically. Which ways to spin your sticks, and then how to do stick bounces off of the floor toms. Could you do that?
I learned all that. Yeah.
Oh my!
Yeah, I learned that. I
love
can't
it.
do it anymore. I can twirl my drumsticks though.
Do you throw them up and catch them and come down?
I can.
You could. Yes.
Well, I could.
You could, right? Yeah.
Just like
but why?
Yeah. I could skateboard, but
right. I'm with you on there too.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Okay, so from hair metal or glam metal, I guess it's different than hair metal.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know how far you go. And
yeah,
then punk.
I was in like a band like in like seventh, eighth grade called. It started as Wild Child with Wise.
Ooh.
And then we changed it to Dark Side. And my first show, I think, was in 7th grade playing Look What the Cat Dragged In by Poison and Guns N' Roses version of Knocking on Heaven's Door.
Of course, yes.
I wore a headset microphone and sang backups the only time in my life.
Amazing.
Still, like, not even in the car do I sing, but like the only time in my life. Fingerless leather gloves. I had it all.
Amazing.
And then like a couple years later, I had like the brief stint of like Pearl Jam, Red Hot Chili Peppers kind of thing. And then I saw, I think, Fugazi, and then that was it. And Sonic Youth might be more of the gateway. Like that was the crossover, and then since then it's just been down or up, I guess, depending on judgmentally down a rabbit hole ever since.
That's amazing. And what is in the water in Ohio? I feel like there is more per capita, more amazing bands and just creatively like groundbreaking people that have come out of Ohio than any other state.
Chemical runoff and like
right, is that what it is?
Old iron,
snow,
snow
boredom,
and
snow,
rubber dust. Yeah, there's a lot of bands from Ohio, and like I don't really feel like people really realize it. Like Dayton, obviously, like there's lots of big music scene there. Cleveland's had a great scene. Akron, even too. There's divos from here. Come on.
Yeah. I mean, it's really and then Perry Ubu.
Yeah,
right?
Perry Ubu.
Yeah. I mean, you get it's the I don't know. I feel like it's like the birthplace of so many kind of musical styles and genres and sort of like blast forwards. It's just sort of what would take the music. You're like, it's too early for anyone else, but it begins in Ohio, and then 20 years later, someone makes it, popularizes it in Brooklyn.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the thing too with Ohio. Like, there's very few bands from here that like get successful and stay here. or like bands that like everybody knows, but they're still not successful. Like they didn't make a career out of it. You know what I mean?
Right.
I think that's kind of like the curse a little bit of Ohio. But yeah, there's a great music scene, and like I grew up in Kent, Ohio, which is like a little college town, made famous unfortunately for the shootings on May 4th and the 4 dead in Ohio. Joe Walsh was from there. Black Flag played there one time. I don't know what else is famous, but Rorschach's last show. But
isn't that what the Neil Young song was written about? Yeah.
And we had like a really good like scene. Like we put on house shows and had like a couple little pizza shops that we did shows in. I saw a lot of good bands, and I think like one of the most life-changing bands for me in Kent is when I was in high school, probably 9th or 10th grade, is seeing Born Against. If you're familiar with them.
Yes, I'm good friends with Sam.
Awesome.
And played with that other bands.
I don't think I've ever met him, but like I'm a big fan of everything that he does.
He should do some artwork for a pedal or something,
or
some kind of like marketing artwork.
We have some mutual friends, and we've kind of we've talked about that before, like have him write something. It would be great. I don't know. I love, that kind of changed my life. Like they had a little distro table, and I bought some records from there, and I loved all the bands. And like, a couple months later, Universal Order Armageddon came through, and like that, that's the first time that I was like truly blown away by like, I don't know, like a hardcore band. Something like that. Yeah,
but it's conceptual. It was like conceptual sort of. It wasn't, this kind of. There's something more going on there. Under the surface.
That kind of like everything about both of those bands kind of fits in with what we were talking about earlier. Like they had it all dialed in. They had like a certain way they all looked. Like all their gear was weird and vintage and big and loud, and it was like, oh god, this is so interesting. There's like shit playing through the amps in between songs and stuff. I was like, oh, this is really cool. Yeah. But yeah, that's like, that's when I think it all kind of like turned for me. I started a record label. I was probably 13, I think. Or maybe I happened 13 or 14. I started a record label when I was 13. And that's like, I've just been focusing on that shit since like this shit that I'm still doing since then.
Isn't it amazing when you look back at it, decades and decades of the making, it's like I'm finally getting good at what I set out to do at like 12, 13.
Yeah.
I've become the person I wanted to be at that moment. You know what I mean? I finally
it's like
enough time, enough money.
It's kind of strange. Like I joke about it all the time, but I don't really think a lot of like my mindset has, for better or worse, has really changed since I'm perpetually 13 years old, and I'm like about to be 46, and I forget that like my body and brain like don't keep up with that kind of shit, and like I'm like, I could start a record label again. I tried to do that a couple years ago. I was like, with what time?
Right.
Kids, this business, and like I'm like, you just press the records. I pressed the records and was like, oh well, then what? Like you just sit on records, like.
Well, yeah,
that's essentially that's what I'm doing.
Yeah. Well, it's unfortunate too, because I think you see things go long enough and you realize, I think it was dawning on me that sometimes the goal line changes on you. You're still doing this, you're still playing the same game or running the same race, but now the goal is like, but wait, I thought we could sell records, and like, oh yeah, no, the people don't buy records anymore. Like, but how does that work? But I see records come out. What do you mean? Why were they making them? Like, it's a good question.
Yeah, it's real weird. Like simultaneously, the record industry, like the vinyl record industry, is doing better than it has in years, and also people aren't buying them. So it's like, what is going on? Like, there's like every record pressing plant is like working 24 hours a day and like buying more machines, but everyone's saying that no one's buying records. I don't know what it is. Anymore.
Well,
but
I think some of it, I think at some point it comes to content as well. Like I just realized, like, oh, it's me. I'm the problem. I see. It's not.
Physical content.
But that idea, I remember being in high school and kind of in the throes of Radio Shack and that era of stuff, and a friend came over who was a girl. We weren't dating; she was a friend, but she came into my room. And I was going to show her some song I'd written or something I'd done, and at that point, she said my room looked like a Radio Shack that had thrown up. I was living in the back of a Radio Shack because I had so many recorders and microphones and guitars and pedals, and again the stacking, my stacking compulsion, and so things were stacked on stacked, and I had a little tiny little. I remember telling my mom, like, I gotta get rid of all this furniture. I don't have enough room for my gear in here. So I had a tiny day bed we'd found at a garage sale, where my feet stuck through the bars at the end. But it worked because I could put stuff underneath it, and it made I needed less furniture and more room
for all the gear.
For all the dumb stuff. It was all things that were only half working, that kind of stuff too. You're like, if I hold it just right and if I tape it and I lean it off to the side, it'll work. So I had several projects like that, which I think led to a lot of that stuff. I imagine there was a lot of that in your story as well.
Yeah, I still have stuff like that, even though like I can technically fix my stuff. Like there's something about me that enjoys the like, this might work, this might not work. Like I hate it when other people's gear is like that, but like with me, I'm like, yeah, we'll see what happens. If it doesn't work, I'll just throw it on the ground. That should fix it, right?
Yeah.
But yeah. I totally. I mean, I started like collecting gear probably when I was like 14 or 15. Like I was really lucky. Like I found there's a little music store called Empire Guitars that was like in the middle of nowhere, like Streetsboro, Ohio, which is, now it's built up, but it used to just be like one busy road with a tiny strip mall on it. And in that strip mall, there's a guitar store called Empire Guitars, run by like two coked out weirdos. And
perfect.
Yeah, I
can
know.
Smell the place already. I know exactly what it smells like. Yeah.
I didn't put it together back then, but like I think all the stuff was stolen, and the whole store was just there to like fund their weird drug habit, whatever it was. But they were like super cool with us, and we'd go in there and like look at, and vintage Fenders back then were not anything like what they are now. Like they were pretty cheap. So we would go in there and be like, I got a broken SM57, a PV215 cabinet with one speaker, and this box of cables. And they're like, take this Mustang. You know what I mean? So
they would trade it?
Yeah, and they would just think it was cool that these like young kids were coming in looking for like old vintage gear. So like that's kind of where I got started, and I had some really cool shit from them that I really still to this day regret getting rid of. But yeah, that's when I pretty much started collecting gear back then. Yeah. I kind of lost my own train of thought on what I was explaining.
The Radio Shack. Yeah, the Radio Shack and the kind of brokenness and the fixing.
Oh, yeah.
Because I guess that there's not a place like Radio Shack anymore. I mean, I guess again, like a time and place, right? When you could just walk into a store and buy soldering irons and solder and parts and chips and things. I mean, there was something about that. It always felt 70s there, even when it was trying to be the 80s. And then never really got into the 90s.
I think that they were kind of like still hanging on in Ohio, because like even in Earthquakers, like mid years, I would still go to Radio Shack. We had like 7 or 8 within like a half an hour of here, and I would drive to every one once a week and buy up all their silver bearing solder, because it was, one, good, and two, the cheapest price you could get for it anywhere. So I just like, one of my days was collecting all the solder from these Radio Shacks.
Clear them out.
Yeah, they wouldn't like special order like a whole bunch of it for me. It was just I had to wait till it came in, and then they just like they turned into a cell phone store, and then they just kind of died out.
Yeah, but that was the end of it.
Yeah.
But I feel like there must have been something in you that stayed with the buildings. I feel like I was of the tinkering type, but there was ultimately I hit a wall where I was like, I just can't. I don't know everything I did. I could only get shocked and only disappointed and only bust my knuckles open so many times, just to the point where I was just like, I'm giving up. I don't know.
With me, I wasn't so much of a tinkerer. Like when I was touring a lot in bands, like I played guitar in a band that toured for like 9 years, and drums and multiple bands that toured it, but I just didn't really have time for any of that stuff, and it was a little like a beyond me. So I had like some local techs and stuff that I would take stuff to, and then when I stopped touring for a little while, I had all this like broken gear, and one of the things was like a favorite pedal of mine, this old DoD 250 Overdrive. And, I had the mindset of pedals back then. Like, you don't fix a pedal, you throw it away and just replace it with something else because it's all distortion. It doesn't matter. Like, that's kind of how my attitude was, like, on a lot of the stuff. I wasn't like so nuanced, I guess, especially like I am now. But, like, I bought another one and it didn't sound the same. To me, it wasn't like as growly and shitty sounding. So I was like, you know what? It can't be that hard to fix this thing. And I Googled like the schematic for it and found a website, General Guitar Gadgets, and the schematic. And for whatever reason, it clicked. It made sense. I managed to fix it in an afternoon with parts from Radio Shack, actually. And was like, oh, that's cool. So that like, I didn't start my like true tinkering until like my late 20s.
Wow.
Yeah. And like I'm sure I soldered stuff when I was younger or whatever, but like, yeah, like I didn't get like super interested in it till then. And it was just like something clicked where it combined like all the things I liked. Like I went to school for graphic design, and I always loved like that aspect in the record label of like piecing together the record covers and like stuffing the records, like just the creation process of it all. And like, I like playing guitar. I like sounds and music and obscure shit, and it just kind of checked all the boxes where it's like, oh, you can do this. And I was completely unaware that there was like a whole industry of that had like existed and died and then come back and died and was like starting to be like, to build again. Like I didn't really realize when I started doing that there was like ZVEX and Death by Audio and all Full Tone and all these other companies like in existence, like doing that. So it was like a surprise to me when I started like listing, like making stuff and putting it up on eBay or whatever. Like, oh, this is an industry, I guess, of things. I was just kind of looking at it like the same way I looked at like putting out records or like.
That's what I was going to say. I mean, there's that same sort of discovery of like when you find out there's the other weirdos out there. Like, wait, you like the same kind of music? Or I'm putting out these bands. Like, oh, wait, you're putting out those bands? It's a similar kind of, synchronous sort of thinking, but uniquely your own, right? You're doing it with kind of your own flavor.
Yeah, definitely. And like, I always kind of looked at it as like, well, this is a good way to like, kind of explore all these things that I like all into one package while I continue to just play guitar in bands, and hopefully one day people will like my bands. Like it freed up the time to do that. And I was doing some other stuff like when Earthquaker started. I was tour managing, and I was I had a really good graphic design job where I just got to sit in my pajamas and get paid an extraordinary amount of money hourly to design the most boring medical PowerPoints and packaging and stuff, and like that really funded all the other things that like I was doing. And, it was a great day when I finally was like, I don't have to do these fucking PowerPoints anymore. Thank God.
You're done with decks. Your deck building days are over. That's incredible. But so music playing and then tinkering, or not tinkering necessarily, but fixing, and then design. So now this is sort of where the synthesis of here's a basic tech understanding, and then your creative sort of pursuits. Like I want something. Was it something I want a sound like X, and then how do I build to that, or was it a discovery you made? Like if I do XYZ, stack these components in a certain area, I'm getting a sound like that I've never heard.
It was where did the inspiration come from? A little of both. Like. I no formal electronics training, and like I don't have the kind of brain that like holds knowledge. Like I can read it and be like, okay, I get it, and then like 20 minutes later be like, wait, what? Yeah. So it's like, for me, like doing it over and over and over again is like the best way for me to like learn it and like feel confident or comfortable, because I wouldn't say I'm always confident, but like that's really like I fixed that pedal, and like for whatever reason the schematic all made sense to me. Like I didn't understand much, if anything, about electronics, but it was enough that I got excited that it worked. So then it was like, okay, well, I'll build one now. Like instead of fixing it, I'll build a clone. And I built a clone and it worked. And I was like, oh, cool. can you make changes to it? And there's like some mods, and I made some, changed some diodes and caps. I was like, oh, well, this is how that affects the sound. What if I do this? And that was really it. It was kind of like super exciting to me for a couple of years, just to be like, oh, well, I can build this fuzz pedal. And this is the difference between fuzz and like overdrive and distortion. And like if I change the cap here, the sound is like this. If I change the resistance here, this is what happens. And I was like, oh, well, it's exciting. You can just make all these little changes and suddenly you have a completely different thing. But I didn't like have any real knowledge of like why it's doing that. And there's still things to this day that I like Google it, like why is this like this? Like I'm fine enough to leave it alone if it's cool. Like this is unique and interesting, but I don't know why exactly it's happening. And to me, that's a big part of what still makes this fun. Like surprises, like not knowing everything. Like knowing enough that like I can make a product and it's not going to fail or kill somebody, but like, like that, like sometimes you can stumble on a happy accident and like it creates a cool, unique sound. Like it's still reverb or whatever, but it does this weird thing. And I don't think you get there by digitally modeling stuff before you set out to design or like doing all the math right so it's perfect. Like to me, that's just as boring as like buying a pedal that you gotta like menu dive through to like set up the perfect parameters. Like none of that is immediate or fun or exciting to me. And I really enjoy that like kind of surprise aspect of it. So that's like really what got me excited about this idea of making pedals, is just you could like change one thing real quick and suddenly it's a drastically different thing. And then like it's, spurs me to like keep going.
So there's a novel sort of content. Yeah, you unlock something like, oh, if it does this, I haven't heard that. Now let's keep going down that road, or let's take a left turn, take a right turn. Which way?
Exactly.
Stack this with that. Yeah.
And I guess like the point of all that is it's more about the sound and like the interesting thing and like the new thing than it is about the technical aspect or like feeling fulfilled being good at like product design or something like that.
Breaking new ground, finding new areas, or at least interesting or unique ones to you.
Yeah, and that's the stuff that's like still like super fun to me. It's the same thing, I think, for people who aren't like designing amps or guitars or pedals or whatever, when they get like a new thing and they like plug it in and they get to like dial it in and kind of like make it part of their own like setup or whatever. Like I get like the same kind of excitement about like developing things. And I work on so much more stuff than we're able to actually put out. Like I'm pretty constantly designing stuff. And I love like it's unfortunate or fortunate, I don't know, like I love making fuzz pedals. Like I just do it for fun on my own. Like if I get bored or like stuck on something, I'm just like, well, I'll just build another fuzz face on a breadboard, because inevitably it's going to be different, and it's sort of like a reset for me or whatever.
Yeah.
I
going
just
back playing a cover again, you're like, you learn more about the song if it's your favorite song, and every time you play it, you kind of understand there's a deeper complexity or like relationship to it, and like I love that idea. Yeah, the kind of the reset. I'm like, okay, here's what I know works every time, or here's the basic components of it. What can I learn by going back to that well and just understanding like simplicity?
Yeah, and it's like kind of ingrained in me now. Like I've been doing Earthquaker. I applied the name to Earthquaker on a pedal in like 2005. So we say the company's been in existence for 2005, almost like 20 years. And it still doesn't feel like it's been that long. Like I'm shocked every time. I'm like, God damn, I've been doing this for this long. But it's still like fun to me, the development process of it. Like as the business has grown, like it's infinitely more complicated and stressful. And like I'm involved, every year less and less in like the actual business side of the thing. Like even though like I'm, the founder or whatever, like it's become its own little life force, and I still really love just the design. aspects
Yeah.
aspects of it, and like I always kind of go back to the beginning. And I also notice that it's like cyclical, like almost every winter it's got to be something with Ohio because it gets so fucking cold here and miserable. Like I always find like I'm just, for whatever reason, I just go back to like the start, like every December or January, and just start like making all these little fuzz circuits just for me to play around with. And like I've got boxes and boxes of pedals that I've made that like could be Earthquaker pedals, but like
just
they
waiting
just
for the
aren't.
time.
They're just like fun for me to develop.
There's sketches. There's something. Yeah, kind of just get your brain back in the game, kind of reset. And the one thing that was sparking in my head as we were talking is, you know, in essence, you know, I would assume, you know, the context of where these pedals go is sort of I imagine, do you design for a band that you would play in? I mean, or do you design these basically for yourself and what you think would sound good, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, I'm totally selfish.
Right. It would make sense. Like, how else would you know what to do? Like, you couldn't really design a pedal for someone else because you don't really know. I don't know. Or has that been a challenge? Have you gone down that road? Like, what would Nile Rodgers want to hear? Or what would, you know what I mean? Or there's, you know, if I'm trying to think of a diametrically opposed, not good, bad, but just in terms of stylistic, clean,
of course,
you know, compressy, like plucky. That sounds like the opposite of what you're doing. But where do you go with that? Like,
and I do some stuff like that. Like I am a big fan of all kinds of sounds, like disgusting or ambient and like really hi-fi. Like I like all that stuff, and that's why I think we end up having like this diverse pedal line. But for years and years, I was making stuff, and you know, on a whole, I'm still making stuff that just I think would be cool. Like I'm not trying to like reinvent the wheel, although I would love it if everything I made was like unique in some way. And I think I drive everybody crazy where I'm like, well, it's cool, but I don't know if it's really worth this amount of money we have to charge for it because it's like not that cool. And they're like, it's cool. People like this stuff.
Leave it alone.
Like just do it. Don't worry about that. Like I'm always worried that it's not like
keep playing the hits.
That's that interesting. But like I kind of lost my train of thought for a second there. Like the
designing for other people or something, or getting out of your head. Are you able to? I mean, I don't know. Just in terms of that process. Yeah,
I am now, but for years and years, like I'm only making stuff that like I really like. Like that's like I have to be like inspired by the thing. And that was a hard thing for me to convey for a long time, like why things are done or not done, or why I want to make this thing that seems seemingly boring or like it's been done to death, but it's like, well, I haven't done it, and like I want to work on this for me, and this is how I would use it, and like hopefully other people would. And over time, like you get proven right. Like oh, we made this thing and like it was successful, or we made this thing and it wasn't successful. Like, you know, to learn what people like and don't like and can kind of like gauge that stuff. But ultimately it's like, do I like this? And do I think it's useful enough for everybody? Like, and then that becomes a product. But like not until recently, like we've been approached before about developing pedals for artists. And some of them like, I like didn't know who they were or whatever, or knew who they were and like wasn't like a big fan of the band or something like that. And like it was just kind of, I turned down stuff that I think some people would be like, yes, I would love to do this, where I'm like, I don't know, like I'm just not that interested. Until we did the Life pedal with Sun. And, you know, I was a fan of their bands. I was a fan of like what they did and like how they kind of just did a thing and stuck to it and like made it their own. And like, but I wasn't like totally aware of them. And then I had like a conversation with Greg Anderson that was supposed to be like, you know, 10 minutes, just introduction. We talked for like an hour or two and was like, we really clicked and had all these mutual friends. And like, you know, I knew immediately that I liked him and it made me like the band even more. And it was like, oh, well, this is a whole new aspect. Like, I'm excited by this idea of getting to work with this band that I really like and respect, and they're cool people. So that's like the first time. And that kind of opened the door. I made a pedal with Wada from Boris, and, you know, a big fan of them. And now I'm working on other pedals that I can't really talk about with other bands that like it kind of blows my mind that I get to do. And like that aspect of it never really crossed my mind in like, you know, the idea of running a pedal company that like I would not, let alone that like bands that I love, they were like highly influential to me, that I still look up to, are using stuff that I make. And in some cases, like kind of like super excited to meet us or me or whatever. Like when they come to the shop is still like mind blowing to me, where I'm like,
wait, you're the rock star, I'm the nerd. Yeah. What are you talking about? Like, yeah.
And I don't say that in a like, look at me, I'm so cool kind of way. It's just kind of like so backwards to me, where like I just can't process the stuff. Like, like it's so like, having Thurston Moore or whatever coming to the shop, and like, I know he doesn't like pedals or whatever, but he was like stoked to be there. Like people from Fugazi and stuff like that, where it's like, oh God,
how does he not like pedals?
I've
seen him use pedals. That doesn't make sense.
That's a new thing. I heard.
Oh, gotcha. I see.
But just like getting to meet all these people that like, like they are the reason why I am the way that I am. Like both musically and just in life, like influence just like my outlook on viewpoints and stuff like that on things. It's so cool to like get to meet these people or like play a part in them making music, and like. Then when I get to like go, like I've just shifted perspectives, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like I used to like shun this kind of stuff, but like then starting to realize like what it means. Like I get to work with these people directly and like help develop some like a product that they are looking for is super flattering and like a cool challenge. And more fun than I thought that it would be. Like even if it's like, somebody has like a Big Muff that is broken in a very certain way. It might not be that exciting to everybody, but like to be able to like recreate that for them. So it's like identical, but like fully functional and built like modern and reliable, like is like a cool challenge to me. It's like, it's fun. Like figuring out why does this sound the way it sounds and how do I recreate it? Like, like.
Yeah. There's something, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, that's fine. I was just kind of like trailing off at the end, but it's like, I don't know. It's like, that's a weird way of like, I don't view myself as being like of service necessarily, but like, it's a weird way of being like of service to people. Like with what I like limited skill sets that I have.
It makes total sense too. And I think there's a lot of stuff, getting back to when we were saying, when you're starting out, these pedals almost are those kind of talismans or those, the magic keys, or like, oh, I've unlocked this power, on video game sort of level or something. I've just leveled up. I got the real thing here. You know what I mean? Versus the knockoff or the this or the that. And there's, the kind of the discovery of, as you learn your craft or as you explore what your abilities or what your tastes are, especially as a person starting out playing music or specifically guitar, and then the pedal sort of interaction becomes this new sort of like ways of testing out identities, almost in, like you said, it's like, do I have the flashy BC Rich or the Ibanez, or am I the vintage guy, or am I the traditional guy, or am I the weird experimental guy? And you kind of use those same sort of things, am I wearing Chuck Taylors or am I wearing Docs? Am I wearing, these, I feel like shoes and go with the pedals so well too, there's a whole sort of looking down at your feet shoegaze idea, but But it's about the identity of your sound. What a funny idea, right? You take all of these pieces of gear that are designed by other people who don't know who you are, and you don't know them at all. You take all these like strange pieces of equipment and you make your sound. You become it helps you define your identity. So there's you're taking all these little things, and somehow by using those to unlock your own ability to express yourself better.
Right.
There's something really powerful about that.
Yeah, and like that's like a subconscious level thing, I think, for me, and like just in recent years has it I don't know like if that's the right way to say this, but like have I like allowed myself to like kind of indulge in that kind of thing where like I used to think it was like a little too, I don't know what the word for it is, like precious to like be tied to like gear or like want to sit down and dial in everything perfectly. And then I started to just realize I do that. I just do it really quickly. Like I could be driven nuts about like where the presence is set on my amp, and then I'll walk over to it and turn it half a turn, and something in me is like, that's it. That's the thing that needed to happen. And nobody else knows, like nobody else can hear it, but like I started to realize, I am this way about stuff, and it is okay to like to like be this like tied into it, you know, like just so obsessive about all of this stuff. And that like kind of unlocked something with me where like I really like changing out like heads or string types, or like, you know, switching up my pedal board all the time, keeping my pedal board small if I can to try to do more with less stuff, like just thinking about stuff in a different way and less from like a standpoint of like an engineer, like a designer of stuff, but more from a like player.
Yeah, it makes sense. And like, I think, you know, when you were talking about like the presence knob, that just reminded me so much of, you know, having the good luck and the, you know, one whatever lottery out there of being able to travel and play music in different rooms. You know what I mean? I realize I count myself, and I'm sure, you know, you're in the same sort of boat, you know, of the top 10% people that can actually play in more than one room or have in their life played in different rooms. And that's sort of where you go, well, this is where those knobs are interesting, because where it's I always set it on 3 in this room, and now here I am in this big open space where it's just ping ponging everywhere, and it's way too bright, and you go, my head's broken, it doesn't sound right. And you realize where you're playing on a cement floor in a giant warehouse where you used to play in a carpeted basement in your rehearsal space, and you needed to brighten that thing up because it sounded like mud. Now here you are in a big bright room, and you got to mud it up, and you got to, you know, learning those things. I think my first 5 years of traveling with gear, I just thought there was broken every night. The piece of shit, you know, vintage Model T amp that I had just was a piece of shit. It never works right, and there was like, well, no, well then I will turn the knob, find the sweet spot, find it, and then. But I was able to, you know, most of the times I would just turn it louder, like, oh, there it is. No, that sounds better.
That's what I think I was doing forever. It's just like, just make it louder.
Turn it louder. Yeah, it'll sound better if it's louder. Yeah. If it sounds like shit quiet, just turn it loud. But I think there's the interesting sort of, you know, you have the insights yourself of being able to do that, and so you know what the range, you know, when you know, I think it's an overlooked idea, but like in a throw of what is tone, you know what I mean, for somebody who's taken this thing and worked with it for so long and ran with it, you know, that you can kind of, applicably, you can say the tone throw needs to go from here to here because those are what works for a guitar player. Anything higher, anything lower is just absurd, and it just doesn't need to be there. In your own personal experience, you know. Yeah,
it is true. Like I try not to be too precious, but I am.
Of course.
I like to precious and quick. That's how I think that I ended up.
Oh man. Well, I know we could do this forever. We're getting close to almost an hour here. I don't know how the time has flown by. I really enjoyed this so much. This has been great to talk to you.
Yeah, me too. It was fun. I feel like I'm just getting started nerding out.
I know.
Somehow, so.
I know. I don't want to take up all of your time, but we should definitely keep this conversation going, because I think, you know, I'm wondering if I can show you just the background here. So that's amp wall, and then
nice.
You know, there's, I don't know, I can't quite get to pedal wall, but I'll send you a picture of pedal wall.
And there's, you know, love to see it.
Yeah, but it's been, you know, I feel like very similar journeys. One part of this podcast that I am enjoying doing so far, in the handful of ones I've done, is a bit of theater of the mind, where we're going to walk down a hallway together and go into the gear corner. So come with me, if you will, as we travel down this highway of our cerebellum into this. We're going to open our door now. You ready to open the door? We're going to your gear corner. You're going to pick. We're going to pick 5 things that you need to do your job, whatever those are. So the gear that you, if you know, desert island situation, or you're going to go into your gear corner. It looks like we're there, but are you ready to go?
I am ready.
Let's do it. Okay, we're walking. Mm-hmm. Okay, looking good. All right. Okay, here we are. I'm going to open the door. Oh my God, we're in Jaime Stillman's gear corner. Jaime, what is in your gear corner?
All this garbage. Well, this for now in my gear corner, a Marshall 810 cabinet.
Ooh, why?
There is something about that speaker combination and like that cabinet depth, and that I'm on my 4th one of these things. I've sold them. I've been playing through one for like 25 years. I've never heard a cabinet that's like this. It's like punchy, has tons of low end. It's not like too mid-rangey. It never really gets muddy. It's never too bright. It like sits perfectly. And I think, and it's like, I don't get the same experience with a 410 cabinet, but there's something about 810s in a single cabinet that is just perfect. And I've, you know, I'm on my fourth one, and I will never get rid of it. It's about to cave in on itself, this one. But yeah, that's item number one that I need to have.
Beautiful. Love it.
For now, I'm going to go with my Sun Model T for the head.
We're trying first generation,
volume.
Second generation, red
First,
knob.
the first generation.
Okay. Silver knob. Yeah.
Silver knob. It's a little dirtier than I wish that it was, but it is loud, and I am still holding on to louder is better. And
there's something, and I'm sure you could speak to it more than I could, but just from the player side, there's something about those giant magnet compressors, or not compressors, transformers on the outs that just, they're heavy as shit, and it sounds heavy, and it has to be, but you have to go above a certain decibel level to really get those things to kick in and do that compression stuff. That's really where the sweet spot of that amp is at 120 decibels. It's not low, and it's not just the preamp. It's the power amp and those transformers squashing, whatever 6550s.
Yeah, the louder it is, the better that this amp is. And like I don't know, I love the frequency response of the amp in general too. It's like a perfect hybrid of a Fender and a Marshall.
Yeah,
I love it. God, what would be my next thing? Some kind of Jazzmaster. I've kind of strayed from playing them in the last year or so, but I love the tremolo on them. I gut all of mine. They're all set up like Les Pauls, basically, like two humbuckers. But I love, I love like the feel of like the vintage Fender and like the scale length, but there's something about that vibrato. It has become part of just the way that I play, like subconsciously. It's like tacked in a little bit. And I've recently like kind of decided to change it up, and now I'm playing like a EGC guitar and an SG mainly, just to try to like get out of the habits of doing what I've been doing. But
kind of tie one arm behind the back and see how
can I play without tremolo all the time on everything, or vibrato
there's something
on everything.
in those Jazzmasters that there's something about when they're well made, or when they're the good ones, there's like almost a well of sort of reverb, not reverb, but a kind of like in that tremolo cavity, it does like a harmony. There's a resonance, I guess
behind the bridge, like harmonics and resonance. And honestly, that's a thing that I try to kill a little bit. Like I use these strings that are made for that they're wound at the back, so they don't totally kill it. They just mute it, so it's not like the overtones aren't overpowering. Gotcha. And I really like that. And you are right, they're not all good. I've owned like 50 Jazzmasters in my life, and like I have 10 now, I think, something like that. And like my prize one is a 68 that I've like was like kind of pristine when I got it, and like I've really done some dumb shit with it. But like I started building them like 5-6 years ago, just like making my own little bootleg Fender shop in my basement, and like I've built a couple that are like, this is perfect, and a lot that are like I don't know, they go up on Reverb and people buy them. But yeah, even though I've kind of strayed, a Jazzmaster of some sort.
Got it.
And then I would go with I need some kind of delay. Doesn't matter what it is to me, to be honest with you, but like I like a short kind of echoey, reverby delay. I'll go with the Avalanche Run because we make it as an Earthquaker pedal.
Beautiful. Yeah.
And fuzz, some kind of really shitty, kind of blown out fuzz pedal. My preferred is like a fuzz face that's misbiased, but misbiased in a way that is really junky and crumbly.
Sputters out.
Yeah, and I think between those two pedals, that would keep everything like super interesting to me, although like I use things like sub-octaves and overdrive way more than those two, like in my everyday playing, but like those things I think would make it interesting. And that's my 5 items on a desert island.
Oh my God. You are a champ for doing that, for paring it down to just that. When I'm sure there's 500 other things that are actually absolutely necessary to just the functioning day to day of any of this stuff, getting it off the board. Amazing. Well, Jaime, thank you so much. Like I say, I mean, I could do this for 16 hours, but you have other things to do, and I'm sure the snow's starting to melt there. So let's please keep in touch and keep this conversation going.
Definitely.
Any which way we can, because I've really had a great time and appreciate you making the time to come on the show.
Of course, I appreciate you having me.
Hell yeah, Jaime motherfucking Stillman. That was so awesome. Jaime, thanks so much for coming on the show. And please, everybody, go to earthquakerdevices.com. That is EARTHQUAKERDEVICES.com. Almost lost my mind there. Yeah, what a great guy, right? It was such an interesting story, and really humble for making the empire of pedals that he makes, and just runs such a great crew over there in Akron, Ohio. I really can't say thank you enough, and please follow and watch Earthquaker Devices to see what new stuff they have coming up in the future. Thank you, Jaime. Talk again real soon. See you, the rest of you later. Bye.